What's more important is a challenging question throughout most of our lives. If we ask this question to ourselves more and more, you will see it changing your patterns and affecting your life in a positive way. The question seems trivial until you put yourself in a position to see how much the outcome of this question could steer your life. Think about what part of your life would be different if you would have asked the question. So if you've been in a part of your life and you made that decision and you didn't ask the what's more important question, and then you get into that segment of your life, that season, that area of your life, and you're like, if I would have just sat there and thought and said what's more important before I did this, it could have changed the course of your life. Or maybe you've asked the question and made a tough decision, and now you see the outcome. How the question steers your life is all up to you. Life scenarios. For an example, you're partying, or you're drinking, or you're doing drugs, or you're doing mischievous stuff. We know, we're built to know that this isn't what we're supposed to do. This isn't something that we're supposed to, you know that you can't go out and do some real crazy stuff and not have any repercussion from it, because that's what it's about. It's yin and yang. I hear that a lot. It's yin and yang. I call that God, but some people call it yin and yang. Every action has a reaction. Everything is productive or counterproductive. It's going to go one way or the other. Think about relationships, careers, your housing, and even your kids. What would be different if you would have asked yourself this question in your kids' life? That's how it affected me the most and made me realize that I better start asking the question more than I was, or I was going to be in a spot I didn't want to be in. 2009. 103 car shows we attended between January and December of 1 year. Rod was there for 102 of them, probably. 56,495 miles we traveled that year. 3 was the average days a month I was able to spend in Greenfield. It's an average. Some months was 2, some months was 4. If I had 5 days in a month, I thought I was on vacation. So you can see the slide. It was a busy year for me in Drop Jaw magazine. I had sold a tour deal that would take us across the United States for a company based out of Tampa. It was a huge milestone in the years of Drop Jaw, and we were ready to take that challenge on head first. But there were some things that would have to stay out of the way along our path. Family, kids, friends, or even our house was not a part of that decision when we signed on to do the tour. In 10 months, we would do all of that. We promoted 56 of the 103 shows. That means we put them on, we promoted them, we went and set up in parking lots. We all would drive to Houston, Texas, and we'd do a show on a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, and then a Saturday. And each one of those was at a different location, a different Rick roll, the wheel company we were doing it with. So it left me an average of 3 days a month at home with my 2-year-old daughter, brand new girlfriend, her 3-year-old daughter, and it was a challenge for me, but looking back on it now, it was a huge challenge for my new girlfriend, which is Heidi. This challenge was one of my biggest accomplishments in my professional career. It would put us driving to places we had never been before and seeing an audience we didn't have before. We were printing, designing, and promoting our very own magazine. 85% of the design process was done inside of a motel room on a laptop that Glenn carried with him everywhere we went. I'll never forget him walking into the casino in Vegas. And I'm thinking, dude, you were in Las Vegas, and it looks like you're carrying a bomb. Like, he's got a briefcase. He's got this big bag. I mean, it wasn't just little stuff he'd carry. He carried enough to where he was comfortable designing this magazine. I was making sure we had enough shirts to sell at the next stop we'd go to. Because that's how we funded. I mean, they paid for our travel, but the only way we could fund the people that came and helped us was to sell our merchandise. The promoting of the magazines would happen at all these events and in the motel room with laptops sitting in our laps. And if we didn't have a laptop in our lap, we had boxes and boxes and boxes of T-shirts. And we'd be sitting in the motel room until midnight, 1 o'clock, rolling T-shirts, putting them in tubs, getting ready. Because the next day we were going back out to sell. And I mean, we probably had 30, 35 designs of shirts. And you know, when people came up to the booth, it had to be very easy to get to. We'd work nonstop. The breaks we had was when we were driving or eating. But other than that, we were hustling. Living the dream. Living the dream. Felt like a dream. In late October, we would all head out to Vegas. It's our last show on the tour, last stop. Glenn took a couple of people, including Rod and his a friend of his, and they drove to the West Coast. They actually went all the way out to California. I would hang back for a couple of days to catch a flight out there, and I was able to take Matthew and Gretchen and my mom and my dad and Heidi, and we all went out there, not so much together in the airplane, but we all went out to Las Vegas. We needed all hands on deck in Vegas for this last show because we felt like we could have a good turnout at this show. It was the weekend right after SEMA, and we were able to promote the show all week on the floor of the SEMA show. And anybody that don't know what the SEMA show is, it's the biggest automotive aftermarket show in the world. People fly in from all over the world to bring their product here and advertise it in front of the audience that will buy automotive aftermarket parts. So a lot of big wigs, a lot of suits, a lot of half-naked girls, a lot of cars, a lot of stuff you've never seen before. This year at SEMA, I just heard from one of my customers that the big deal is taking a Jeep Wrangler 4-door and cutting the back of it off and putting 2 more wheels in the back of it. So now there's 6-wheel Jeeps, and they're building these things, and they cost $350,000. And that's the kind of stuff you see at SEMA. SEMA is the big. It was nice to have Heidi with me on this run, as well as my parents and my brother and his wife. It was a very memorable experience for everyone that went. But my memory of a phone call from my daughter made me ask myself this question we are here to talk about tonight. What's more important? Kaylin had called me one night, and at this point, she's fresh 2 years old. She was talking a lot, trying to figure out what she was saying, and she kept asking me when I'd be home. There was something about that question being asked of me that hit me this time. I had missed so many things from Kaylin's life. So many things about her growth. And while I was on the road, I missed a lot of little milestones. But this time talking to her was different. It was my call to go home and to go home for good. I was tired of seeing pictures of her doing something that I couldn't witness myself. I was tired of hearing about her milestones and not being present to see them. I was tired of the road and everything it dished out while you're traveling on it. I was going to go home after this trip to Vegas, and I was going to stay. We had over 350 vehicles at the show on the other side of the United States. So we're in Las Vegas. We're promoting this show all week. We're rolling. I mean, we're hustling the SEMA show. My feet have never hurt so bad all of my life. Everybody's promoting. Everybody's trying to get cars there. We had our family there for a trip we were able to take them on. We were leaving a SEMA show that had our magazine on the shelf with every other automotive aftermarket magazine on the shelf. This picture on the left here. You see Glenn standing in front of the magazine cover. But you could go up to a stand at the SEMA show and you could pick up, everybody had their own magazines and you'd ship them magazines and they put them on these stands, and anybody that's inside the show, if you're inside the SEMA show, you are affiliated with a retail business. You can't just walk in. It's not a show where you pay admission and get in. You have to have a shop. You have to have some kind of meaning to be there for the automotive aftermarket business. If you want to go to SEMA, you have to call somebody and get your way in. So our magazines are laid on the rack with everybody else. Mini trucking and lowrider and all the things we've looked at our entire life as being, this crazy thing that they gave us something to look at and a goal to shoot for, to try to show our side of it, our flavor. And we had made it. We had covered the country, showing people from all over the world our car show life and what they really wanted to see. Our numbers proved that. We built DropJawMag.com to capture an audience that had over 100,000 unique visitors every month. Millions of hits and page impressions. But it was time for me to move on. I wanted to experience dad life, and I was ready for a change. This is 2-year-old Kaylin, 3-year-old Madison at the top. After that show, I traveled back to North Carolina eager to start my new chapter. I started working with Matthew at his wheel and tire business and was able to build a very nice home life for my soon-to-be wife and my kids. The question was always in my head, but this time I had answered it correctly. What I left behind in that change could not be what I focused on. I had to focus on where I was going, not where I had been. It was a welcome change for my family. Most of all, it was a welcome change for me. And a lot of times when you're asking yourself the what's more important question, if you're stuck in a situation that you're fighting yourself over, I need to get away from this, but if I get away, I'm going to affect this person and this person and this person. That cannot be the way you look at it. You have to worry about affecting you. And I was able to take this leap. I just told y'all we had over 100,000 unique visitors every month. I was the business behind this. Glenn was the camera guy and the design guy. Without me, we didn't have any money. Without Glenn, we didn't have any content. But I was saying, you know what? I don't care what y'all think. This is my time. I'm going to go home. I cannot tell you how many people to this day ask me to do Freak Show again. Over and over and over. I told Glenn 3 years ago, I said, I'll go do Freak Show with you as long as I can get up on the stage and talk about God. But I will not be Big Mike ever again. So it's a decision I made for myself. The scripture here in Ephesians, thank you, tells us to make our decision of what's more important based on wise factors. Don't get caught up in the crowd you're hanging with and make decisions according to what they would like to see. We have to make these decisions for ourselves, not based on anybody else's opinion. God will lead us down the path, but we have to be willing to listen to God and to ourselves when we're making this decision. Don't shrug off the right decision because it won't be the most popular decision. That's what I was just talking about. Stick with what you know to be the right path. God will help us through these decisions if we give Him the opportunity to help us through them. This next Ephesians, it's going to be tough for me, man. The next Ephesians scripture tells us to make the decision to be the parent that God put us here to be. Do not let anger get the best of your parenting, because then you're giving your child no choice but to deal with their problems the same way. We are who our children will become. Period. We are who our children will become. They know nothing different than what we teach them. Bring them up with God present, and they will always know that they can lean on Him in times of need. Remember that one day, they'll be asking the question, what's more important? I want to talk to you guys about this last slide. When we need help in our life, we are so reluctant to reach out and ask for it. God has given us the ability to ask for help without anybody else knowing through prayer. This quote by C.S. Lewis is powerful. A man can accept what Christ has done without knowing how it works. Indeed, he certainly won't know it works until he has accepted it. So, and the scripture goes so much along with that, because the scripture's talking about, people who aren't spiritual can't receive the truth from God's Spirit. It all sounds foolish to them. It all sounds foolish to them. They can't understand it, for only those who are spiritual can understand what the Spirit means. Those who are spiritual can evaluate all things, but they themselves cannot be evaluated by others. So, I have somebody in my life that I feel like a lot of times I'm challenged with the fact of my faith. I'm challenged of who I am and who I follow and how I go about my life. And he's the foolish one that chooses not to accept the Spirit in his life to become better. But he will accept it one day, and then he'll see how foolish he is, or was. Foolish is a harsh word, but it's in this New Living Translation, that's the way it spells it out. It's basically, you never know. Let me just read this. You can certainly get help from Christ, but first you have to ask. You do not have to know how it all works. It is impossible to know that until you try. You didn't know donuts were good until you tried them, right? Give God a chance to help you and get you through the tough times that you are faced with daily. This scripture here tells us that it seems foolish to everyone that hasn't tried it. Once you try it, you are able to see what all the fuss is about. You have to commit to opening up your spirit and allowing God to be present in your life. He isn't going to barge in. You got to ask Him for help. You can do it in your private time. Nobody has to know. Once you start walking with God, it will be obvious to those people around you that care, and it'll be a welcome change for you. So, the last thing here is allow yourself to open up. Allow yourself to understand that voice inside of your head is spiritual. The closer you can get to understanding that voice that's telling you, no, don't go that way, go this way. The more you can lean towards that and ride that way, the easier it will become. But you have to allow the initial contact. And I can't sit up here and tell you what can and cannot happen. All I can do is relay a message that I read in this book. And it tells me that if you don't allow God to come into your life and allow you to become spiritual, then you'll never become spiritual. Accept Him in your life in your private time, in the bathroom, in the shower, driving to work. It don't matter. Just talk. Casually talk. So, now the factors that we talked about earlier in our meeting. Now that we've gone through this meeting, are you taking into consideration the factors that you told me about at the beginning of the meeting to make your decisions? Ask for help. Allow God into your life and ask yourself the question every day. What's more important? Next week, I will be in St. Louis. Have no idea how I'm getting to the arch. Don't know how far I'm from the arch. But I'm going to make it to the arch, and I'm going to do a live video there.